Hi, everyone. I am joined with my friend and colleague, Fernando Rojas, to talk about, drumroll please, somatic mindfulness. I think that this term has been talked about and shared, and it's in the vernacular, the word somatic. And I'm telling you this, Fernando, too, because I have people that call us and they ask us questions like, do you have somatic yoga?
Hmm.
Do you have somatic body work? And so like people are like they want this word. They are like somatic, somatic. So I just think that we should share what that means and go into some organic conversation about somatic in general and mindfulness, and we'll talk about your work.
Happy to. Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you for your trust and to continue to count on me. So I really appreciate that. Um, Somatics, yes, has become, I guess you could say, has become a buzzword. Yeah. And the way that I see it is, it's really like a guiding post into exploring what are truths that have always been true and that will continue to be true. Right? So somatics then gives us maybe a framework of language that we can use to then insert some of these ideas so that we can explore them. And so, yes, of course, you can have something that you call somatic yoga, but it's already somatic if you go and look at what the definition of somatic is, because somatic has been associated uh, with something that is also known as somatization. Hopefully, that's a word in English, um, which is which is which is this expression in the body of I'm going to say issues that have to do with more the emotional content of things, um, which is a bigger conversation that and some of it we can touch. But just to keep it simple, somatics only means of the body or pertaining to the body, right? And so the what's important about the somatics concept is the context of awareness. Is there power in awareness? Is there power in paying attention in a particular way to an object of attention, which is where the mindfulness word comes in, right? And so we, as long as we include our bodies and the way that we feel from the inside out, which is also known as interoception, right? As long as we include our bodies in every decision making that we have, in the way that we experience anything that we're feeling, it is a somatic experience.
I have this word interoception that people are starting to pick up too, which is really lovely. If you're a body worker, we learn this word, and it's that sense of self from inside self. And we hear a lot of people saying that they have a really hard time with that. Like, I don't know how to feel inside. Like, I don't know how, or that's confusing to me. And it seems like the mental body starts to try to find a way to figure it out mentally when it's sort of a feeling thing. But I'd love to hear what you have to say for someone who's like, how do I do that? How do I
Right.
feel?
And how interesting is it that we have the word I feel in our vernacular, right? And we use it for everything, right? I don't feel, I feel that this, I feel that you're not understanding me. I feel funny. I feel tired. I feel fearful. I feel happy, right? So we can say it, and we can say it, and we use it often, and we use it frequently. But are we actually knowing what it is that we're saying, right? And so an easy way to access what that interoceptive capacity that we have is anytime that you say the words I feel, right, just ask where, because we can only really feel in one place, right, and it's in our bodies. So if I am feeling something, and if I say I feel something, that must mean that there is something, a sensation in my body that I can associate with that, and that's it. Often I say, just stay in the question, right? Just ask the question and stay with it and give yourself the time to be receptive to whatever comes, right? And so where do I feel it? And just wait. Because then it gets interesting, right? Because then I can begin to say, oh, when I feel anxious, there is a part of my body that is associated with that, right? It's not just the obvious, like I have a headache or I feel pain in my head, right? It's if I feel anxious, if I feel happy, if I feel ecstatic, if I feel inspired, the next question has to be where? Where do you feel it?
Mhm. I have a questioning I do at the beginning and the end of my yoga class that is very somatically based, where we're just asking those questions. What does your physical body feel like? If there's emotions that are circulating, where would they be sitting? If you're feeling them, where are they? And I think it's really interesting because that awareness itself is a whole nother intelligence and a lived experience that starts to bring online a different orientation with the world and with yourself. And I think that's the magic of somatic mindfulness and the work that you do is it's just a pathway to self-awareness, not just for the person, but in a setting where you're working as a healing partnership with clients because you are a body worker, massage therapist, and a massage therapist instructor. You are teaching people how to be attuned or how to deepen the attunement. And I'd like to talk about that word because I started using this word, and then you came into my life, and your book. You talk about your book with the attunement. I just find it really interesting because people really are craving that word. They want to be attuned to. They want to be in spaces where they're seen, they're heard, they're listened to. There's a felt sense of this person sees me. Oh wow, that person's very attuned to what's going on. They're not checked out.
Yeah, there's many. There's a lot there in what you just said that we can pick apart, and and I often say that I take liberties with terms that I use so that we can move away from what something is supposed to mean to move into what can something mean. Yeah. And so when you talk about attuned, of course, the word attunement is a common word, and we can use it in different contexts. For this specific application, what does it mean to be attuned? You mentioned, when a client feels like their therapist is not there, right? So really, what we're talking about is, um, and this may sound a little bit like I'm moving off topic, but I'm not. How do we define what it is that we do as body workers, right? And I often like to say, is it an application of a technique or is it a conversation? And if it is a conversation, what language are we using? Because the body has its own language. And what makes for good conversation, right? And so you mentioned these words. You said, I see you, I hear you, right? I accept you. So let's just take this premise that we as humans, pets, and every other living thing, that we can have a relationship with, prefers to feel seen, to feel heard, and to feel accepted. Right? And so the mechanism of how is it that we can present ourselves, in this case, into a therapeutic context, as someone who hears, who sees, and who accepts, is through this attunement, or this attuned way of being, which I use the words attuned touch as the way to define it, right? And so how do I define attuned touch? Attuned touch is really just this: the action that my hands take and the quality of my touch is informed by my inner state. This is anyway inevitable, right? My touch and the quality of my touch is anyway going to be informed by my inner state. So if I am distracted, that's how my touch is going to feel. So attune then means that I am aware, that I am bringing awareness to how it is that I feel and where it is that I feel it, because that part I can influence so that then my hands can go and do what my hands need to do. And so in conversation with you, for example, the way that I show up to this conversation, for it to be a good conversation, both of us need to feel seen, heard, and accepted. When we're touching a body, then the question then is when I touch a body, how does that body feel seen, heard, and accepted? The language that we're speaking now is English,
Mhm.
which that we speak when we're touching someone is the language of the body, which is the language of sensation.
Right. Right. Yeah. So, like, but what I'm also hearing is that beyond the language of this conversation, that the need for the integration into the body, because we could see and sit and listen what our inner state is right now, of what you're feeling and what I'm feeling, even though we're speaking in English,
Yeah.
and still be listening to what our felt senses, and you're listening to yours, and that informs with the cognitive mental information of how we're choosing to communicate.
Yeah,
And
because if you think about it, I cannot offer something that I don't have, right? And so when you talk about interoception, we talk about acceptance. When you talk about seeing and hearing, I start with me. We can even make a bold statement, and it could sound like this. When I see, hear, and accept me, then I can offer that to someone. So that's not to say that when I show up to this conversation, I have to be in my very in my very best day, right? That I have to feel fantastic, that I have to be walking on water. It's not that. Because that's not acceptance of where I am right now. However I am right now, that's how I am. And all I need to bring to that is not a desire for change, but a desire to know it. How do I feel? Where do I feel? That's it. And that's where that stops, because the body all it wants is to feel heard. When I hear me, then I can offer that experience to you or to my client, because I am offering it to myself, and that's the only way that you can pick it up. Whatever we're saying, and this is anyway, science supports this, right? Whatever we're saying is only part of what this communication contains. The body language, the tone of our voices, the way that we interact with each other. Yeah. Whether you're feeling heard or I'm feeling heard, all of that is beyond the language, it's beyond the sentences that are being said. So in a very direct way, it's how we show up. How we show up for ourselves, that's going to project to whichever living thing we're interacting with in life.
what I've noticed in interacting with you and other individuals that are either, a community member, or they're a counselor, or they're a body worker, whatever their method of communication is, or exchange, is there is an awareness of self that you can sense about that person that is calming. Like, there's a communication happening that, Fernando, you're very calm, you're centered, you're communicating what's on your mind. And there's an attunement, I think, that happens in the exchange. Like, the relaxation in which you're having can somewhat be passed on to myself or others. And I think we can see this in community, in groups. When one person is stressed, you have a child in the back of your car that's stressed, you can attune to that and start to move into that space, and the whole energy of your car ride gets heightened, or wherever you're at. And I think when we can apply these principles in our community, with our family, and even in body work. So what you teach isn't necessarily just being able to apply to the body, but that's what we're learning. And the course that you offer at Firefly for CEs isn't just for massage therapists too. It's for anyone. You don't have to have massage background because we're not doing massage techniques. And I think that the value of this is so big because somatic of the body, as we talked about here at the beginning, that piece of listening to the self, listening and attuning, and then having that conversation is a skill set that's a lived experience. It's not just a mental, I learned this knowledge, this information that you passed on to me, and then I just regurgitate back to you facts.
Right.
It's a practice that through that practice, that lived experience, your whole, in my experience as a body worker and as a community leader, that changes how the world responds to you, and you can, with intention in yourself, somewhat enhance the response to the world around you that has to you. And so it, like you said, it's back to this conversation and how it can ripple out. So I see it as more than just a bodywork technique. I see it as a way of being and a way of a lived experience that can ripple out and have a huge, profound change. And not that you're coming at it from a perspective of we're here to heal or change or anything. It's not that. It's full acceptance of this moment, of where everything is with the body you're speaking to, the person you're speaking to, the touch. It's being in a present space. And I feel like the embodiment of our culture, meaning being able to be aware of the body, get out of the mind, which is where we get a lot of suffering and pain and even stress that starts to impact the body. I think that this is like my favorite thing, like
Mhm.
as a way of being. And so I'm always so excited when you're coming to teach. So I'd love for us to just transition into what those classes are, because some people might have seen your classes on the schedule and think they have to take them in order, or is like, which is the first level? And really, it's outside the box of levels. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, that's a big conversation too, because it's important, right? So we of course live in systems, right? And so that means that when I am in the US, I need to drive on the right? And I'm not gonna, that's not my fight, right? If I am the UK, I'm gonna drive on the left, and that's also not my fight, right? So we stay in these systems. So of course, um, these classes are structured in a way that they capture and they offer what is useful specifically for body workers, right? That's true.
Mhm.
It is also true that I have a particular way of seeing things that creates an awareness of how things actually are in my view. For example, when you talk about body work, when you talk about yoga, when you talk about martial arts, yes, in the system that we are, we put them, we package them in ways that fit with that system in order for us to put it into the, I guess you could say, the commercial context of it, because it's useful, because people didn't need the CEs and so on and so forth, right? To everything is regulated, even yoga teachers are regulated. So you have to practice in particular ways to conform with the system. But it is also true that the way that these things are move, evolve over generations is through what is through a lineage, right? Not a board of directors decision making process. And so we expect, if we were going to go the traditional way, you would expect to be with a master or with a teacher, or if you were in Hawaii, with an uncle or an aunt, right? And then you would spend time with them, and the word that I'm using these words on purpose, spend time with, right? Then you will go out and you put it to the test, and then you come back and spend more time with your teacher, and then you go out again and you do the same thing. And what you can expect is that then you as a student are going to become, through practice and through spending time with your masters, if you want to call them that, right? You will develop your own way of speaking this language, of applying the same truths in your own unique way. And so my classes, to answer your question directly, have different titles. These titles express what would be a quality of being. And the object behind the name is to describe the following. When I have a conversation with a body through a tuned touch, and it is a particular area of the body, if that area of the body was going to perform or act or be the best version of itself that it can be, what would I call that? Well, I may call it radiance. I may call it expansion. I may call it grounding. I may call it connection, right? That only means that in all of my classes, we're going to bring the principles, the same principles that we're discussing here, that we're having a dialogue about. And then we're going to apply them to touch, because this is the context that we are in, the context of therapeutic touch. And then we're going to do it in different parts of the body. Yeah. Understanding that the conversation is a system-wide conversation, and it doesn't really matter where I'm on the foot or the head, it is still the same conversation. And so when I said spend time with, what all of the titles of my classes do is that they offer more time, and sometimes jokingly I say more excuses for us to spend more time together. Because these principles, what they have is something really interesting. They are so simple that it is hard to accept them and then to make a practice around them, because they are not complicated. What's complicated is our previous understanding that I now have to worry about what presence means. And this speaks to what you said before. What we do in class is we have the experience of what presence feels like. And then it becomes an embodied experience that you can define in your own language. And I don't have to tell you what it means, because you have felt it. And that's what we play with. And the more often that we do it together, the more, not that you become a little me, the more you become a bigger you.
Mm-hmm.
Because what I mean by that is, all of us are unique in the way that we express our own unique gift that we have to offer. And what these classes can do, and now I have seen many times, is that, as in this case as a body worker, and now I've had insurance brokers, handymen in my classes. What these classes can do is offer this opportunity for us to enter into this other way of being, this other way of experiencing what we perceive, that is more receptive and less analytical. And the more that we do it and we experience it, then it's like we already have the neurons for it. It becomes more familiar, and then it arises. It's like, I know that you and I have a common language when we talk about, for example, meditation, right? Well, meditation is not something that you define and then learn. It's something that arises in you as something that is natural for you to have anyway, when you engage with practices, right? That eventually go from something that I wasn't used to something that my body recognizes, something that is, I like to say, it continues to become more and more familiar, right? So there's a whole bunch that we talk about in classes. A lot of it has to do with what the group brings and what is the interest that the group has, but we put it in the framework of the principles that we have, and then each participant has the opportunity of grasp onto a gift that is for themselves, that is going to enhance not only their practice, but their life. Because I always say, we practice in life what we bring to the table. These two things are not separated.
Absolutely. In business, I say that a business organization or family is a reflection of those who are leaders in it, who are running it, who are bringing the energy to it, the life force to it, to feed it. And that's the same thing with, it's not separate what's your personal life and what's going on there, and how what yourself you're bringing into your practice with your clients. It's still going to transfer over. It's a beautiful reflection.
Right. And so the point then is to bring awareness to that, because it's impossible for me to take the hat out of dad when I have the hat on of teacher, right? I'm still, all of that informs all of my decisions, all of what I am. And so let's reverse the thing that I have to leave stuff out as if I could, right? And then just bring the wholeness of what I am, which is really an interoceptive process.
Yes.
Because if I bring the wholeness of where I am, I'm also bringing my body, which is really intelligent, and it's always telling me, hey, here's something that just needs, to be heard. And that's it. It's like, I often like to say, it's like going to lunch with a friend, right? And this friend wants to tell you about their day, or something about their life. And sometimes we feel like there's something to fix. There's something that we need to solve for them, when really all that they need is to be heard.
Mm-hmm.
And so that in itself, that's a practice. That's a practical thing that you can try tomorrow. Next time you go out with a friend and they want to tell you something, how about if you just become the space where whatever your friend wants to say can happen, instead of me thinking that I want to fix it or that I can fix it as if I actually could. Yeah. Same thing. That's all my body wants, is to be heard. And so how is it that I enter into good conversation with my body? How is it that I enter into good conversation with another's body? Or how is it that I enter into good conversation with you right now? Those are the questions that we keep, that stay always open, because that is the experience that we're after. The experience of what it feels like to be receptive. Being open, having a question open, does not mean that I need the answer. It means that I have the experience of being receptive.
Yes. And it's the word experience you're saying is just kind of echoing here, because I think people are looking for a different or a new experience of being in life. Not everyone, but there's a lot of call for that because of the contrast and a lot of stress and a lot of things going on in the world, that there's a desire, a pull to experience or be something new, something different. And normally when we talk about academic classes and CEs and learning, we want to know practically, what are we going to learn? What are we mentally going to learn? What are the bullet points we're going to go away with that we can regurgitate, and the techniques and the tools that we can tell other people about? And those are still involved, the techniques, but these techniques are a really new, deeper way of lived experience that, like you said, being with you as an instructor and with what is brought to the class from the other students, that lived experience of who they are in that moment, that kind of comes alive organically in the class, that moves through the class of what you're teaching, but still with the foundational principles of what that class's title is. And what I think practically is really interesting, people will ask, well, what's the reason why I would take this class? And it's like, well, for me as a body worker, the tools and techniques, it doesn't have to be hard. It's like this class helps you with seeing it's going to be easier and not as hard. You don't have to push your body. And you like, trying softer is the word that keeps coming to mind.
Mm-hmm.
And also that the results for most people are looking to get out of pain and many other things in working with a massage therapist or a body worker. And those things happen with tremendously, by far, a lot less force, or, hey, we have to go really deep and do all this deep pressure. almost completely the opposite. Almost the softer we're being, the more it was opening up in the body and releasing,
Mhm.
which is really fantastic for me as a body worker. For what I'm doing similar kind of work for years, to see, just to watch the students have these awareness and aha moments of this and in their own body, like, wow, that doesn't hurt anymore. And we just did that. Like almost like this baffle, like the brain and the mind is trying to figure it out when it's really the body's been listened to, has been heard. And that's what I would say for anyone that's listening to this. It's like, in that still mindset of like, well, practically, what am I going to learn? Like,
Right.
how do you do your work easier, lighter? How does it increase your awareness of self and increase your quality of life, your quality as being a body worker? And I could just go on and on with that. But yeah, what do you have to say about that?
Sure, plenty, plenty. So really, it's just about having, again, this is not about saying, oh, that was wrong and this is right. It's not that. I would even go as far as to say whether it is easier or softer is just a consequence. It's not what we're after. Yeah. It's really what we're after is to understand what actually happens. What is it that a body that is receiving body work, what is it that that body actually needs in order for that body to do what that body already is designed to do? So it just contrasts then with the idea that I have the technique where I come and I do something to you because I know better than you. Well, that's the same conversation that with a friend. I don't know what, I am not my friend. So how can I actually have the solution? So can we then consider, and it's only a consideration, that perhaps it is not so much what I do, but how I do it. And it is not so much about how am I doing something to you, but how is it that I am creating a space for the body's own intelligence to arise to wherever it needs to go. Yeah. Because when you think about it, I like to use the word precise touch more than I like to use the word soft or light touch, right? Because I am not here to change. However, if you're a sports massage person, or what, if you regard yourself as a deep tissue working person, none of that is going to change. What's going to change is that the way that you engage is not so much a technique application, right? But a way for you to enter into conversation with that body in the way that the body understands. And so the body, I often say, the body could care less what you call what you do, right? The body understands how you do it. And then if we look at it in a very broad, simplistic way, the body either feels good or it feels bad. We are either defending ourselves from something or we're not. This is a good thing because we want to stay alive longer. And so we have these mechanisms that are embedded in us for us to respond automatically to the face of danger, right? But what we want to do is for the intelligence in our body to be in a state that is called allostasis. Allostasis, right? Which is different than homeostasis. Allostasis means that that my body is can respond optimally to whatever the current demand is, whatever the circumstance is, right? And so as I sit here, I need some tension and compression in my body for me to be upright. If I didn't have it, I would fall, right? If I fell asleep, my head would fall, right? So I need to have some type of engagement, but only as much as I need and no more. Often humans tend to keep certain tension patterns that have us respond chronically to situations that are not happening right now in this moment. That's a fact. I'm not inventing it. And so what we can do really in a general sense is just to offer this body the opportunity to really go check. Here, check to see if the tiger is out there, ready to pounce. You check. I'm not checking for you. You check. When you realize the body, that the tiger is not there, then the body will do whatever the body needs to do. That is different. And it will respond in allostasis to the current demand, which is, as you lie on my table, what is the demand other than just to play dead, right? Shavasana in yoga terms. Allow gravity to have you. But that's not something that I can say because it is not an intellectual thing. It's not an analytical thing. The body does not speak in complete sentences. And so as long as we can talk to the body in the body's own language, and we offer the body the opportunity to go check, to turn on that radio, that is called neuroception. Check to see if there's danger. And then when you check and you assess what the current situation is, which has to do with how connected you feel to me, as your therapist, which is an important word, perhaps, that we could talk a little bit about, and what is the current situation that you're in, then the body will do whatever the body needs to do. And then I, as a body worker, I'm off the hook. I don't need to worry about acting as if I know better than an intelligence that is already there, an intelligence that makes an apple tree always give apples and never fail. There is an intelligence that I am a part of that I can instigate, and me showing up as if I knew better than that, well, that's a little ambitious, right? How about if I just come and then I play, I catch the wave, right? The wave is going to happen anyway. So I either catch it or I don't, right? And so how is it then that I can stay in a way of being that is inviting this intelligence to arise to the extent that it can for the current situation that we're in? So precise touch means whatever you're doing now, your session can continue to look exactly as it was yesterday, except that we're only changing the context from technique application to conversation. And in conversation, I am heard and you are heard. So both of us are in the formula, which is why then the consequences, I don't hurt, I don't injure myself, my burnout disappears, emotional and physical, right? And is this important? Well, the statistics for body workers are staggering with regards to emotional and physical burnout. And so, yeah, self-care, I say, self-care is a professional skill that we have to practice. So somatic mindfulness is a version of self-care, and self-care is a professional skill. So yes, from my classes, you're going to feel what it feels like, and then you're going to hopefully make a commitment to yourself to engage in some type of practice that is for you, that is easy, but that is consistent. Because if you want to be a virtuoso in the guitar, you have to practice your scales. If you want to be a virtuoso in self-care, then you have to find some way to enter into a practice that is daily, that is constant, and that it includes when you're actually working.
Yeah.
Which is what's cool, right? That I actually can come to a session and come out of my session refreshed. I come out better. I benefit from the session that I offer. Isn't that a cool concept?
Yes. Yes. We are opening up to more listening. I think that's what I'm hearing, and so much of what you say.
Yeah.
Is listening. Yeah.
Listening. Yeah. Such a simple word.
Such
a simple word. But when we go and we really look at what that means, and I include me and I include my body in it, and then I see what I can experience, then it can really shift not just my practice, but many things in my life.
Yeah. I feel like from the moment we're born, that first, even in utero, the system is listening to the mother, to the womb, to the chemicals coming in the body. And then when we're born, that first touch, being held, there's a natural listening that the mother and father do to a child's nervous system, with the rhythm of which there's patting and soothing. And I think that listening can be either attuned or not, depending on how deep that parental figure is also listening to self and to the child. And I think it just builds upon this. I think our systems are always learning how to interact and to listen. And for my own personal life, it's how do I deeper receive the information and listening, even and accepting it, even when the system maybe feels overwhelmed or overstimulated. How do I allow, and what does the body or system want to move into for it to either become more regulated or allow the dysregulation temporarily or whatever it is. But it just comes back to listening. It's like we're just learning, how do we listen to life?
Yeah. And listening is a question, right? You said right there, you mentioned two questions, right? How do I?
Mm-hmm.
Right? How do I allow? How do I listen? How do I? The value in your question is staying in the question and not worrying about the answer.
Mm-hmm.
It's when when a question arises, can I stay with the question and then have the experience of having the question? That's the other way that I can perceive life. I perceive it by listening or by being receptive, and I perceive it by entering into the analytical aspect of it, which is what we're experts in. And
Yes.
are useful, and that's okay. It's just that we're just bringing the other side of it so that then we can balance it out. And both can shine and both can show up when they're needed.
Yes. Wonderful. Well, I'm very excited for you again to return. This will be like I don't know, it feels like your 10th time with us, but I think it's only been like 3 years or something like that. So you'll be returning with us. Even if anyone's watching the recording, you return pretty regularly to Firefly Hollow Wellness Center for our CE classes in York, Pennsylvania. And your website's listed in the description here because you teach all over as well. So if someone's listening to this and wants to learn more about you and your work and teaching classes or learning from you, and even if they're not a body worker, I think that's an incredible opportunity for them to be. Again, this experience is a lived experience. This information, we can talk about it all day on this recording, but it's really an experience that the body has when being in the presence of you and the students and what we're working with. So I'm encouraging questions. If anyone wants to reach out, if they have anything to ask, feel free to do so. And other than that, you can sign up at our website at fireflyhollowwellness.com, continue education. But other than that, Fernando, let's sit here and listen for a little more second here. It's a couple more seconds and see what else there might be to arise to finalize our moments together.
Well, let's bring the word connection, right, into the conversation. Connection is anyway now supported by science to be one of the predictors for good outcomes in bodywork. Connection, right? And connection does not mean effleurage, right? Or petrissage. Connection means how connected my clients feels to me. The only way that I can create an environment, especially with someone who just met me and comes and lays on my table in such a vulnerable way, is by ensuring that I create that environment where they can feel connected to me, where they can feel safe, where they can feel trust. And the way that can happen is by the relationship that I have with me. Me with me, this interoceptive way of experiencing the world, if you want to, if you will, is one of the ways that I can create the space for connection to arise, for trust to arise. Then the rest is just details. Gravy, croutons on the salad, right? once you create that, should I say vibe? That could be a good word for it. When I create that vibe, when we go and we handshake, I was talking to a group of people, non-body workers, and I said, we just gotta get good at handshakes and hugs because that's touch.
Mm-hmm.
You can practice attuned touch in that. How is a handshake or a hug good conversation? That's what we're gonna learn.
Yes. Yes. That connection is, I would say, if you could come up with one word of why, the question why, and the answer to that for myself of why I continue to do everything I do, that's the foundational word for it all.
Mm.
Connection to self, to others, to land, to body, to each other. And that's our kind of tagline and our theme now for everything we do. And that Firefly, our holistic expo that we do every year, and it's like connection is the medicine.
Right,
So
right.
yeah.
And I would add to that it it's not it's not re it's not necessarily reconnecting, it's realizing that we were never not connected.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Wonderful. Well, it's always amazing to be reminded that we are connected.
Mhm.
And even though we don't have the regular dialogue between the times we see each other on a regular, but I look forward to seeing you again in person. And thank you so much for taking time to spend with us today.
Likewise, I am honored that you continue to invite me, and I look forward to the class soon here.
Yes. Yes. Awesome. Well, thank you guys. If you're watching this again, I will put the dates. I would look at our website now because I don't want to date this video. The classes for this particular recording are coming up in August 2026, but there's probably more if you're watching this afterwards. So please check our website. And other than that, thanks for being here and be well until next time, my friends. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.